Continuing here, you know, I don't like being manipulated. And I am being manipulated to the nth degree. We all are. This is what I mean about this training, this teaching by these establishmentarians, these diabolical freaks. They're devilish, devil worshippers for all intents and purposes. Some of them literally, and some of them just metaphorically, just by going along with it, being minions of those masters of darkness that are running our affairs. But I resent it, and I know all the nuanced little ways that a lot of people don't even pick up on, that we're being manipulated. And one of those ways is all the single people in the world that aren't hooking up. Because everybody knows that, look, if you're a guy and you can't afford a wife and kids, logic dictates that you stay single, right? The logic of this world. That's the way it works, because otherwise you sure as hell don't want to be on welfare. I mean, that's a bad thing. I mean, if you're poor, you're bad. That's immoral, right? People are going to look down on you because you're needy and poor and you're a failure, right? All those things that really are unbiblical. That, in fact, it's quite the contrary, that often it's the poor, the dropouts, that are, their heart is the closest to God, those that fit in the least to this current establishment. But yet this is the paradigm that's been, foisted upon us. We've been trained to believe this so-called reality, this excuse for a reality, when the opposite is true reality. And I resent it. So this is a population control. This is another aspect of it, another perk, another benefit of creating financial despair, economic despair, by creating poverty. Look up the Cloward and Piven strategy. This is it. They know that when they create these wealth imbalances, this pyramid scheme they've got going, where people think somehow that cost of living inflation is a good thing as long as it benefits them, they go along with it. So you got this critical mass of people that are brainwashed, that are ignorant, willfully or otherwise, and they're confused. And it's just, it's a mess. We've got a real big, fat, ugly, evil mess, okay, right now, socially, politically, and economically speaking. And in order to solve this, okay, it's going to be a bit traumatic, but that's what we've got to focus on. We've got to admit to ourselves how many people are employed in all these industries, in the financial services industry, whose jobs will be at stake if you get rid of the national debt. People are going to be borrowing a lot less. America is the collective, the citizens of America. So this national debt falls on the backs of everybody. The homeless guy killed last night, it falls on his back. Because all those taxes people pay, well, I'm rich and I pay a lot of taxes. No. Once it's in the kitty, okay, it belongs to everybody. It belonged to that homeless guy out on the street, all your tax dollars. So they're getting poured into this gas tank with a gaping hole in it. That hole just keeps getting bigger. The problems keep getting worse. And all these subsidies to these agencies that revolve around the problems only exacerbate the problems even worse. Just consider all those jobs that would disappear. If crime plummeted, all those people, think the attorneys, the judges, the law enforcement officers, the jailers, the clerks, all the people, that's a special interest group of people, right? That's an industry. If you're involved in a particular industry. The lending industry. Think of all those jobs that would disappear if people didn't need to borrow money. If we had sound economic policies, people would be able to save enough money in short order to buy their own house. So they wouldn't need to borrow. So all those people laid off, most of the people in the criminal industrial complex, most people in the lending industrial complex, the dubious warfare industrial complex. And lastly, the welfare industrial complex. Enough said, though, on this. I still love everybody. I would trust even people that I criticize harshly and I disagree with vehemently. I would still trust to run the Federal Reserve because I know their hearts are good. I know their intentions are good. And I'm talking about capitalists. I'm talking about socialists. I'm talking about the American people. 90+% of you voted against the banking bailout. Would have if you had a choice. You didn't. We don't have a democracy. What a joke. If we did, that banking bailout would have never taken place, and housing prices would have corrected. That means the worth of your housing dollars would have gone up substantially. But instead, they went down as they maintained this racket of high prices, manipulation, this price rigging, price fixing, collusion of special interest groups that benefited from it. So just know that as harsh and critical as I get with people, and I even name names and stuff, but I'm not belittling anybody, and I understand. I mean, but just don't be a deceiver. That's it. I mean, it's okay. I mean, I can handle somebody being deceived, but you can expect I'm going to have a retort, and I'm going to tell you with math. I'll back it up. Anything I tell you economically, I'll back up with math. You want to talk about progress and how to define progress. We'll have that discussion, but at the same time, it'll be a holy come to Jesus discussion where we have honesty is the cornerstone of the conversation. It's just being honest and saying, look, these things I want for myself and my family, yes, I want everybody to have those things. And if that's the case, then I trust you to run the Federal Reserve. And that's the greatest compliment I could pay anybody. So Matt Drudge, Alex Jones, don't get me wrong. I think if you guys really believe high housing costs are a sign of a good economy, you're deceived. It's that, but I don't judge you. I don't condemn you. I understand how easy it is to fall into that belief. But just consider all the houses you could buy if they were dirt cheap. You see, if you want a lot of houses, if that's your thing, you want to be a collector of houses, well, cheap is where you want to go. But the idea that, this pyramid scheme can work indefinitely forever is absurd on its face. So, you're wrong. You're just flatly wrong. Listen to them advertising drugs on this YouTube commercial. And they give the warnings. Oh, this drug may cause you to die. It might cause worse diseases than you have, and all this crap as a disclaimer. Yeah, this system, the establishment is just so screwed up. We're so screwed up as a race, a species. We need God's help. We need God's help. It's the only thing that's helping me to cope. I'll tell you what. My hope is in the Lord. And all of our hope is in the Lord, whether we know it or not. His will is going to be accomplished on earth. One way or another, sooner or later, it's coming. So that's about as optimistic as I can be. Antifa riots turned out to be just a few people. With all the wanton murdering in America, mass murdering in America, does anyone else feel like they too are being somehow murdered? I was talking about feeling black and blue this morning, Yeah, I feel black and blue. Black and blue. My brother was just run over and killed. And I don't blame the guy that ran him over. Could have been me. But these mass murders, I feel like it's me being murdered. Might as well be. What's the difference? Am I somehow more blessed, more protected than these people? I don't buy that. Could be anyone. Christians. The guy was an atheist, pedophile, wife beater, child beater. Dishonorably discharged from the military. He was in a mental hospital. Escaped from a mental hospital, and still they let this guy out? Come on. If we got such brazen incompetency, what hope is there? This is deliberate. This is by deliberation. Black hat, that's the tiny minority I've been talking about within the government. and they've got to be rooted out. This is what Trump means about draining the swamp. But we got all these high-ranking politicians that still think that guys like John McCain are the cat's meow. Give me a break. He's no more the cat's meow than any other veteran out there. And this is a man I used to like. I really did. I mean, if we're going back to the 80s, that guy has been a senator forever. I like to hear some of the stuff that came out of John McCain's mouth. So don't get me wrong. I mean, as long as he's still just deceived, okay, and he voted against a bailout. But so many of these high-ranking politicians, they went along with that bailout. So I don't trust a lot of these people to run the Federal Reserve. But regular American citizens at large, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And that gives me comfort. I thank God for that. I thank God. Thank you, God. That's encouraging. That's the Holy Spirit of God is helping me. There's little comfort. You know, the Bible talks about we will be comforted with a little comfort, strengthened. You know, and this is the kind of thing that gives me hope, is knowing that the vast majority of American people are trustworthy. In fact, in studies where people could get away with stealing, it's proven that 95% of the American people would not do it. They don't want anything. If it's ill-gotten gain, they don't want it. That simple. That's saying a lot. We're a good people. We're not racist. We're not elitist. We're good. We're very good people. We're the best house in a bad neighborhood for sure, but it has nothing to do with capitalism, because all we've had is capitalism for my whole life since they killed JFK when I was 5 years old. And it's just been going downhill. It's all just a big pyramid scheme that can't work, never was intended to work. It was just a method of operation to steal the wealth of a nation, impoverish people while making others very wealthy, and having a critical mass of people to go along that are just going to keep, hey, we got to keep on this trajectory. These banks are too big to fail, and we can't jail these people. Their characters that committed these crimes, these financial crimes. They're too big to jail. They're guys like Slick Willie. And the people don't even understand the problems. They don't understand the lag period behind, economic policy being implemented or a protection being removed, like the Glass-Steagall Act in Slick Willie's case, and how long that's going to take to play itself out before you really feel the implications of that policy, that economic policy. That's what I'm talking about. So let's just not play stupid, folks. We're a family. We got to start acting like a family. Donna Brazile, good for her. I heard she was kind of in on it at first, but this whole corruption in the DNC, but now she's coming out and speaking out. She's jumping ship. Good for her. TMZ on gun control, like I was talking about. They won't say a word about, how guns are banned in Chicago for the most part, but they've got the highest crime rate in the nation. They won't talk about this. You don't hear that in the mainstream media. They don't point this out. I mean, they're reading off a script. It's syndicated. They're manipulating us. They're corralling us. They're moving the Overton window. They're brainwashing us. They're conditioning us. They're training us incrementally, step by step. They take 2 steps forwards. Once in a while, they got to take a step backwards. But they want to keep on progressing us downhill, downhill. That's the progress to them, is really regression. Retrogression. They want to bring us back to a more primitive state, to where we have less understanding, less knowledge, so we're more confused, more befuddled, so our problems are more and more overwhelming. So we're just want to throw our hands up and just keep our nose to the grindstone and take care of old number one, pay our bills, survive ourselves, can't worry about anybody else, right? I get it. Believe me, it makes me feel like that too. And it's messed up, man, and we got to work together here, folks. I'm sorry, but we've got to work together. Oh, and then they get some healthcare professional. They said, and this was all over mainstream media. Of course, they read off the same script. That's how I know. Just have to watch one mainstream media show like NBC. They said that the mental health experts, this is what they say, this guy in Texas, this is the reason that he shot up the place, because he has lived a life that hasn't been successful. No qualification, no definition for what they mean by successful, but they just throw that out there, that this is why this guy did what he did. Can you imagine if potentially every person in America that has not lived a successful life, as not even defined, was potentially a mass murderer? You understand that that's an overwhelming situation, okay? But that's the kind of crap that's being spewed out in the mainstream media. I mean, I want to vomit. These people just, God help them. God have mercy on their soul. We know why they do it, though, if they're lying, and they know they're lying. These are intentional, deliberate deceivers. They're on the highway to hell, but they're scared. They've got families to take care of. They need a paycheck. You understand? So all this stuff, if we had a guaranteed income and everybody had a semblance, a sense of security, that nobody